Hi everyone. I saw that there was a couple questions how to add lettering to a waistcoat stitch. So I thought I'd do a really quick tutorial with hi. Hello. So I'm left-handed. So my graphs go, when I'm doing a hat, go left to right. If you're right-handed, you're gonna go right to left. So left-handers kind of have a perk on this one. I'm almost finished. So I do a bobbin method. I don't like to carry my lettering yarn all the way around. I don't live in an area that I need a lot of bulk in my hat. So I prefer just to have separate yarns for each letter. So as you can see, they're not really yarns. I was naughty and just kind of cut and went since it was a small project. I have a recipe for disaster with tangling. I'm normally much more organized. So I have my H lettering that I initially started when I started my letters, and then I have my I. So I have two separate lettering yarns. Ooh, so much easier without a camera. And then I have my working yarn. So to do the waistcoat stitch, I'm always going to say that wrong. Instead of going into your stitch like you traditionally would with a single crochet, you're going to look right where there's a little, that's not a very pretty stitch, is it? Yeah. You're gonna look right where the two stitches actually meet. There's gonna be a little V and you're gonna go right in there. And you're gonna pull it up just like a single crochet. So you're gonna keep doing that until you hit your letter. So my lettering is blocked. So all of my starting H's are gonna stack up on each other. This makes it really easy because I always know where I'm going to start, which is above the last lettering. So I'm on my color changing stitch right here. So I'm going to go in, bring up the loop, and then this is where things get a little crazy with this method. This becomes my carry yarn. So I'm going to be carrying this all the way through the H. My working yarn for the lettering from the last stitch is going to get carried over, if I can do it with the camera in my face, carrying over. Now when you do this, you want to make sure this stitch has no tension on it, otherwise you'll get distortion in your lettering. And then we're gonna follow the pattern and do two. So I'm gonna do two stitches. So one, and then two. Now when I do this, I am catching my dark green as well as my crossover yarn for this. So everything gets covered nicely. So I've gotten the two, and now we're gonna do two dark. So I'm gonna cross it over, make that a little tight. And then this time I'm going to carry the crossover yarn as well as my lime green lettering yarn, and I'm going to do two dark. And then we're going to flip it. So I'm going to bring back my lime green, which should go in front, and that's why I get tangled. Lime green to finish off the H, and then this is what I'm going to catch as well as my crossover. So I'm going to do two. Ooh, that got a little loose and crazy, didn't it? So I'm going to do my color change. Like that. I'm going to catch the dark green and my crossover green. So one, two. And then I'm done with my H yarn. So we're gonna pretend like I have this super nice and neat and kind of toss that over to the side till the next round. And now we're going just to do 4 dark green till we get to the I. So we did our crossover stitch, and then we're going to do 4. So 1, 2, 3, and now we're at the changeover stitch, so 4. I'm gonna grab the yarn from the last stitch for the I, cross that over, keep it loose, and then we're gonna do 2 lime green stitches. Just like that. So that would be 1 row of the H and the I. So I'm done with my I yarn. So once again, we're gonna pretend like it's really well organized. I'm just gonna move it over like a professional. I'm gonna do my crossover, color change, tighten the stitch. Just make sure this stitch isn't tight because it has very, very easy for it to get tight, and then you're gonna have not a fun time the next time around. So then we're just going to be working with just the singular dark green to work over, sorry. So we are going to do this all the way around. If I knew how to edit videos, I would edit this out, but I don't. With this particular little work, I do not have a join because it's not a hat. But when I do my hats with this method, I do like the invisible join. And you want to make sure you do have the height for the next round. Just so if you do any kind of stitching in the back, like the hearts from the coffee hat, you don't get any weird slants and the lines are all straight. So we're just gonna go all the way around. If you're new to color changing or graphic in general, there's a lot of good videos online that kind of teach you the principles of bobbins and color changes and best way to weave in ends without adding too much bulk when you have a lot of stringies. So we are almost there. So now we are at the color changing stitch. So now that we're done with this row, we're gonna highlight the last one. We're getting a little crazy here and finishing up. So the H is exactly the same. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the previous row. So we're stacking. So I know I'm gonna start in the same stitch as I did before. So I'm gonna do my color change. Grab the yarn from the H from the last row, cross that over, make it loose so we don't have any distortion. And then I'm going to do 2 lime greens. I'm gonna drop the lime green. I'm gonna pick up my dark green. It's a lot easier to do when a camera's not there. And I'm gonna make sure I'm catching my crossover yarn as well as my lime green lettering yarn because I have more to do on the other side. So then I'm gonna do 2 lime greens, or 2 dark greens, I'm sorry. And then we're gonna do the crossover and we're gonna finish off this H. So we're gonna do 2 lime greens. And now we are done. Oh, I got with another row of the H. So I'm gonna get rid of the H yarn. And then we have 2 this time of dark green. So we're gonna bring that over, tighten up that previous stitch, make it look real nice. And then we're gonna do 2. And then the pattern calls for us to switch to lime green. So you can tell when I started, the waistcoat stitch has vertical rows. So you can actually move up the row to see where my next stitch is, lines up with the previous stitch, which lines up with the pattern, so I know I'm correct. And this one's gonna have a bit longer of a crossover. You can see right there, it's nice and loose. And then I'm going to do the 6 lime green that the pattern calls for, so 2. 3, 4, 5, 6. And so this row, if you trail it up, matches that row, which is how my pattern looks. So I'm gonna move my eye yarn over, and we're just gonna finish this row. There we go. And through the magic of my poor editing, I will not be able to get rid of this. So fast forward a few seconds. Another stitch you could try if you're not a huge fan of the waistcoat stitch is the extended single crochet stitch. That is the stitch I use for a lot of my graphicans. I like the shape of the stitch. It makes it a little bit more square. It doesn't have a lot of distortion on the slant. So that's usually my preferred method for that, and it would translate just fine to a hat. If you're looking for a pattern, what I've done is just found a single crochet hat that I like, and I just adapt that to the waistcoat stitch and my lettering. So we are gonna come around here, one more row, and that should finish up my high. All right. So we finished the last row. We got one row left. So this one is the exact same as before. So I'm going to start in the same stitch that I have been doing. I'm going to bring my H yarn around. And then make sure we keep that loose. And I'm going to do 2. So 1, 2, dropping that, changing back over to dark green, but making sure I'm still picking up my crossover yarn and my lettering yarn, and do 2, 1, 2. Dropping the dark green, moving that to the back, and then I am catching all of that. Ooh, look at that mistake. I forgot to change my yarn color. We are working super professional here. Here we go. And then we're gonna do 2 lime greens. Oh, see, tangles. So many tangles with this method because I wasn't smart and made bobbins. So we are done with the H. The I is going to be the same as before. So we have 2 darks, and then we're going to have 6 lime greens. So I'm just going to tuck that in. And since we're finishing, I don't have any more work left to do with this actual yarn. I just like to carry it over just once, just to kind of seal it in. I don't know why, but I like to. That way this yarn doesn't get really loose before I weave in. So that is now done. And then I got one more to do before I grab my eye. So I'm doing my color change. Just like that. Grabbing my eye yarn. That one has a tangle too, oh my goodness. Just like so, tighten that up. And then I'm gonna have 6 lime greens across. I'm gonna do my color change, and since I don't need this yarn anymore, I like to take it over to the next one and just finish it like that. And then I am done with this yarn too. So we have finished the lettering, and it looks like the graph, so yay! But you can tell that that distortion isn't really there. I still have a bit of a slant because I think it's the way I'm holding it. So we're gonna go now another time around with just the dark green. So I don't need the lime green anymore. My lettering is done. So if you're doing a pattern or color change throughout the hat, like if I had those hearts, I would carry over that yarn the entire length of the hat, since it's a continuing pattern and it's not isolated to one letter. So sometimes I will have yarn that carries through the whole hat. I like to make sure it's pretty loose, like not a lot of tension, just so I don't have a tighter row than the others. So I will show you what to do when you don't have a color change. Through the magic of poor editing, fast forward. Oh no, I missed that stitch. There we go. For single, I did double blocks because it makes the letters bigger. If you want to have thinner letters, you would just make it singular in width. Okay, so I'm not using any of those yarns from before because my letters are done. So I'm just gonna go through and pretend like I didn't just split that yarn. Go through. You wanna make sure that you're crocheting looser so you cover all those stitches. Sometimes I like to have my lettering yarn just a bit thicker, just because I like the letters to poof out a bunch. But other than that, I would just make sure they're the same weights as well as the same thickness. I know weight can vary a little bit, so. Also, if you're doing a light color over a dark color, I like to have the lettering just a smidge bit thinner. Same weight, but maybe just a thinner yarn. It helps cover that up a bit. And then my crossovers and stuff, I move towards the back of the stitch a little bit more. Okay, so we have finished the high. Now on the back, if we turn it inside out, you will see that I have my start yarn, my end for each one of my letters. And then I will just weave those in. So that is how I do waistcoat stitching with lettering. So I hope that helped. Y'all have a good day.